Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the AJN Network. Despite the snaps, I will not be beating a tiger with my hands live on the air during this show, but don't rule it out for the weekend. Frank Granito standing alongside Kevin Coleman, and I'm sorry to disappoint, Kevin.
Listen, there is still a tiger roaming around Richfield. You have to understand that. So if you come into Richfield, just keep an eye out. You just never know what may pop out.
You tell Travis I know where he lives. And I am.
Listen, Travis is going to be a little busy for the next couple months. He's going backpacking in Europe, so he'll not be in attendance. No, I'm actually dead serious.
I believe you, and that's very cool to hear. We wish Travis safe travels. I hope he enjoys himself, but he better be back by the wrestling championships.
Oh, he'll be back, and he is ready to come back and talk some wrestling with you. Believe me, he's already told me multiple times.
Oh, I'm excited to have him back, but let's not jump too far ahead before we get to wrestling. Let's look back at yesterday, Kevin. Field hockey on the AJN Network. We were at Dunning Field. New Canaan hosting the defending FCX champion Wilton Warriors. Wilton coming in after losing their first game against a very talented Fairfield Ludlow squad. The Warriors looked like the defending conference champions yesterday, Kevin.
They did. They came out, and I think after a disappointing first loss of the season to a very talented Ludlow team, they wanted to come back and get the season rolling again, get that first win, especially in a tough place like New Canaan, because New Canaan had that nice first win of the season. And this is a New Canaan team that I think is improving, Frank. There's some young players on this roster that are up and coming. Brand new coach in Kelly Marks. I think this is an up and coming Rams program. But again, good to see the Wilton Warriors finally getting off back to a positive start to the early part of the season. They got some of their key components going on. Emma Rosen had a great game as well. Molly Thomas got in the fold. So a nice outing for the Warriors field hockey team.
For the Rams, I didn't think they played as poorly by any sense. Wilton just a better team yesterday, but I think there were a lot of teaching moments for Coach Marks, and there were a lot of negatives that can be spun into a positive light when you think about that. This is a young team continuing to grow, and they will continue to build momentum as they head towards the postseason. Before I let you dissect that thought, let's look at the highlights, show you some of the action from yesterday as the Warriors came out on top 3-0 over the New Canaan Rams.
Most fun I've seen four captains have during the FCX tour. They're having a blast, very relaxed, having a good time.
Well, they've got an opportunity here as this one squirting around in the crease. Diving for that one was Gata. She makes the save originally. Short side with Hanley. Lets a shot go. It ricochets through towards the crease. Out in front, scramble for it. And a shot here from Rosenkopf is in.
Great shot by Rothkopf there. Finds that far post.
Now Thomas letting a shot go. Blocked out in front. Good play defensively that time by Sophie Wood, but it will not stand as able to fire one to the back of the cage. That time is... You can see it there. The Warriors getting on the board early on, just 3 minutes in, and Molly Thomas breaks through for the first goal. Let's start with Molly Thomas, Kevin. She was all over the field yesterday for the Warriors.
She did, Frank. She was not only very vital on the offensive side, she was great defensively. She came back, helped out on defense, because New Canaan at times had some good breaks. They were out on the offensive end, odd man rush, weren't able to convert anything. That's the big thing they couldn't do yesterday was finish. They had some nice corner opportunities, especially in that first half. They had 4, while Wilton only had 1. Wilton was able to convert on that corner that they had in the first half. New Canaan, on the other hand, they couldn't. A little disappointing, but what you mentioned before we went to the highlight was for a new coach like Kelly Marks, there are positives to take away from the negatives like we saw yesterday. You go back, look at film, erase some of the sloppiness I thought at times, but overall, a New Canaan team, I think, again, is very strong. They will be there come playoff time. They just have to hope that some of the little negativity things that are going on right now get fixed by the time the playoffs come around, and I think they will. But for Wilton, I mean, they really played as a team yesterday, I thought. Everyone got involved. Everyone had a touch on the ball. That's what I like to see. They really spread the field, which is really nice to see.
For the Warriors, do you think that yesterday was a better glimpse of what team we're going to see this year, or do you defer to that opening game against Ludlow? They fell 2-1.
No, this is the team we're going to see this year. I think you look at that game, I don't think they got up for that first game of the year. And those first games are tough to get up for. You look at some of these good teams, not just in field hockey, but a lot of the sports. Some of these teams just couldn't get up for that first game, and they used that as motivation. They came back, get a nice comeback win, kind of erase that first loss of the season to Ludlow. Now they move forward in a positive way.
For the Rams, they put up 8 in their opening game against St. Joe's, come back with the goose egg. What do they need to do differently on the offensive side of the ball if they're going to get going again heading into the rest of the season?
Well, yesterday they got shut out, and I think at times you look at those opportunities they had, Frank, it's a little disappointing because they had so many great looks at the net. Got to credit that Wilton defense, though. They surrounded all those middies, the attackers, and doing a nice job of shutting down any opportunities they had. A couple nice looks towards the end of the second half. Maybe you can use that as positivity if you're Kelly Marks. I think you look at the end of that second half, they were really pushing to get that goal just to at least make it 3-1, put some pressure on Wilton. Weren't able to finish. Some good goalkeeping by Wilton. Again, great defense. I don't think that's cause for alarm. They put up 8 goals against St. Joe's. No, they had people to score. They just couldn't find the back of the net. Plain simple.
Similar to what we said during the girls' soccer game on Tuesday night. Far too early for any kind of panic whatsoever. You're not even through the first full week of the season. One thing that did stand out to me, though, when you look at all the different scores this week and the way it played out, Falcons might be legit out of Ludlow there. Lauren Beccaria is as good as it gets, and Ludlow is definitely a team to keep your eye on heading into this season.
I think they're definitely a team just like Darien that are going to be there to the very end. Now, can Beccaria continue to have a great season? I think she will. But how else is the rest of the team going to play? Obviously, field hockey is a team you can't just, you can't have just one playmaker get the job done for you. You got to play as a whole team like we saw yesterday for the Wilton Warriors.
We're going to have plenty more field hockey throughout the fall season right here on the HAN Network. For now, though, we're going to step aside. We'll welcome on John Kovach, and we turn our eyes to this upcoming weekend's football schedule. We look at all 7 games on the calendar coming up next on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
Had a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Orthopedics Walk-In Urgent Care gives you direct access to orthopedic specialists fast without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Orthopedics Walk-In Urgent Care can help. Open 7 days a week now at 3 locations. The iPark Building at 761 Main Avenue, Norwalk, 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien, or in the Westport Medical Center at 323 Riverside Avenue, Westport. Go to coastalorthoct.com. Like them on Facebook.
At the office of Dr. David Oshiro of Darien, we provide high-quality and personalized orthodontic treatment in a professional and caring environment. We make treatment fun for our young patients and believe it's never too late to have a healthy and beautiful smile. Call now for an appointment and find out more at droshiro.com.
The leaves are changing, water temps dropping, and the sun is setting a little earlier each day. But there's still a lot of great boating, fishing, and coast time left before we see the first snow. And above all, remember, it's always summer at the Dock Shop. With loads of new fishing tackle and accessories, clothing, jewelry, and home decor, the Dock Shop is just what you need when you start to feel that New England autumn chill. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
I'm Tracy Masella, a licensed clinical social worker at Silver Hill Hospital in New Canaan. Join me each month as we talk with experts on the front lines of the treatment of mental health and addiction. Straight Talk with Tracy, a Silver Hill Hospital production, airs at 12 p.m. on the second Thursday of each month here on the HAN Network.
Back on the HAN Network, Frank Granito alongside Kevin Coleman, and we are happy to welcome on John Kovach now, as it is Thursday afternoon, and we turn our attention to the upcoming weekend of FCAC football. John, obviously we had you in earlier this week. We saw a lot of great action last weekend. Eyes to week 2 now. What game jumps out at you immediately?
A few of them do. West Hill and Norwalk intrigues me just because of the sheer number of points both those teams scored. You're looking at 119 points between the two of them. I don't think we're going to see that, but I think we could see a fairly wide open game tomorrow night at Testa Field.
Very funny, too, when you think about last season when these two teams played. This was a 12-11 game.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot different this year. Just quickly, again, looking back at last weekend, Trinity Catholic, who we'll see on Saturday, 27-13, they take down Danbury. Staples rolls over Central 52-0. Norwalk 68 to Hamden's 57. You had Wilton 42-21 over Bryan. McMahon, Darien 38, Richfield 12. West Hill 50 to Ludlow's 27. The big upset, 38 for St. Joe's, 35 New Canaan. Greenwich 70 and Trumbull 16. Now, let's look at week number 2 here. Let's start first ever night game at Darien High School for football. The Blue Wave hosting Bryan McMahon. This was a 54-17 game last season. I don't think I see it going very differently this year.
No, unfortunately, I think McMahon is struggling at the moment. I think they'll pick up a couple of wins this year. I don't think this is going to be that night.
I agree with John. I think you look at McMahon, I think they'll get a couple points on the board, but overall, I think Darien's going to roll big time.
Game number 2, we're taking a look at Ridgefield and Stamford. Tigers looking to bounce back after that tough loss against Darien. Stamford, John, is hurting even worse, though. They had the big lead against Fairfield Ward, blew that one late, and they are both sitting at 0-1 now.
I think Ridgefield probably is going to be a little more well-positioned to win this one. I think Stamford will hang with them. It could be a one-point game. I think it'll be a couple of scores, though. But I just think Ridgefield's got it too together to fall short this week.
I agree. I think Ridgefield bounces back, but if they don't, that's a huge cause for alarm because you look at this Stanford team, while they are hurting after a tough loss like that to Ward, they're going to come out, especially at home too, their first home game. This is going to be a big game for Stanford, and Ridgefield can't take this game too lightly. This is going to be a tough battle for the Tigers, but I think overall, while I agree with John, they're going to hang with the Tigers, I think the Tigers come out victorious.
Stanford is at home, obviously. I think that plays a factor. One thing for Ridgefield to think about now, though, we knew the defense was going to be a focal point heading into this season. That was going to be the strength. They say, or it says on the scoreboard, you gave up 38 points to Darien. 14 of those points came via the pick 6. So I think defensively, Ridgefield can keep Stanford at bay. I don't see the Black Knights scoring more than 7 in this game against a Ridgefield team that has to rebound. Offensively, though, what are we expecting from the Tigers?
And I think that's a huge question mark. What's Greg Gatto going to do coming back after a little bit of a tough start to the season? Can they bounce back? What's the running game going to be like? How is he communication-wise with the wide receivers? That offensive line, let the rush come through for Darien Blue Wave. It's going to be a tough battle, but I expect to see Gatto bounce back for the Tigers.
I'm sure a lot of time was spent this week, Frank, in pass protection with the line and in pass skell with the quarterback and receivers. Get that communication fixed. Stanford's good. I don't know that Stanford's Darien good. We know they're not Darien good. And you have a Ridgefield team that if you take away the 2 pick 6s, it's a 24-14 game. That's a respectable game against Darien.
No, I agree, and it's a bad matchup for anyone to have to open the season against Darien. So not the break Ridgefield would want it for Stanford. You really hope this is not a team that's coming in, hanging their head, and still dwelling on an opportunity lost after that tough loss on opening weekend against Fairfield Ward. Our next game up, we've got New Canaan traveling to Danbury. I mean, all the talk this week, New Canaan falling to St. Joe's. We can't find the last time New Canaan lost a season opener. It's their first loss at Dunning to a team not named Darien since 2007. Now they've got to come back. I think they're way too overpowering for the Hatters to handle, but mentally, where are the Rams at right now?
That's the question marks. How are they going to respond? What would a team rather do? Lose a game by 3 like New Canaan did, or lose by 54 like Trumbull did to Greenwich? I think New Canaan has to show up and decide, okay, we lost 1. The season's not a lost cause. Let's go out there and prove that we are the New Canaan Rams. But they've got to mix some things up on offense, and I'm hoping that they've gotten Drew Pine to maybe work his progression and not take off holding the ball out by really almost by the point.
I agree with John. I think this is a bounce back week for the Rams. Use that loss as motivation. Come back. Drew Pine, maybe he becomes a little bit more comfortable in the pocket. We saw the chemistry between him and Quentin O'Connell a couple times in that St. Joe's game. It was a tough loss for the Rams, but again, I think they bounced back in a big way against the Hatters.
But is there too much? He's got to look to other people, because if people just see him looking at Quentin O'Connell.
And that's why I think it's a good sign that you saw Owen Shin get involved in that second half. You didn't see him at all in the first half. Then you really start to see him break away in that second half, get some nice chunky yards. So that's what I'm hoping to see against the Hatters. Maybe Owen Shin gets going.
I agree, John. Go through your progression. Go through all of your reads. It's especially for a young, you don't want to say immature or inexperienced quarterback, but he's just still, the kid's only a sophomore.
You forget that he's a kid because he's been talked about for so long. But I don't know how many progressions we saw him go through. And we saw a lot of what I thought was panic scrambling when he might have had a receiver open had he gone to check 2 or check 3.
I think after everything went wrong for the Rams in the first half, Pine got into I need to do this myself mode. I need to make everything happen. Almost tried to do too much, and that put them into tough positions. I think the Rams bounce back this week. I think they have a good showing. They get a lot of players involved, too, after so few were week 1. But you talk about it being a lost season. If you are New Canaan right now, and this is a direct message to the team, I'll say it right here, this season is far from over. If you run the table from this point on, what says you are not the best New Canaan team of the past 5 years? If you win every single game moving forward, including a state championship, the difference between you and every other team in New Canaan history, or in the past 5 years of New Canaan football, is not that you lost to someone, but is that you beat Darien and you ended the streak on Thanksgiving. And I hope that the players on that team can appreciate that right now and are not stuck thinking week 1 we've already blown it and it's all over.
That's the challenge of football, is that you have to keep them focused on that and remind them that one loss, no matter how close or one-sided, does not make the season, and that it's the games at the end that matter. New Canaan's done it, New Canaan's been there before. I think this one they get through.
In Lou's 37 years, they've been there every single year except for one. So it's something that almost every team Lou has coached has had to overcome, and I hope the Rams are able to do it and they figure it out. Let's keep moving. Another team that is reeling and needing to bounce back, John, Trumbull. After taking one on the chin, 70-16 against Greenwich, they now go to Fairfield's Taft Field. They'll take on the Ludlow Falcons. Everything, despite what we saw on Saturday, tells me that Trumbull bounces back. They're able to beat Ludlow just purely being outmatching them. But your thoughts on this one?
This has probably been the longest week for Trumbull because they went out against a Greenwich team that wanted to prove something and proved that they can do a lot of things right. And they did. Greenwich looked spectacular on Saturday. Trumbull, not so much. Trumbull has things they need to fix. Yes, they were down a key cog in the offense. You know that they have been waiting all week, that this has been the longest week of practice that some of these guys have ever experienced, because they can't wait to get back on the field, and now they have a message that they want to send, that they're not the team that gave up 70 to Greenwich. They're not that team that got blown off the field up at Sacred Heart the other day, and that they are somebody you can talk about. You've got a Ludlow team that gave up 50 with a number of penalties, and word is, according to what their coach told Hearst, Connecticut, that got worn out and banged up.
It's tough. I do want to mention, you talked about Trumbull missing a key piece. Marquise Woods will be out through at least the month of September, from what we're hearing. They do not expect to have him back next week when they play against New Canaan. That could be something that's a little scary too, Kevin, for Trumbull. I think they're better than Ludlow top to bottom here, but coming off that last loss, there's a little bit of added pressure knowing New Canaan is next on the schedule, and 2 losses for either of those schools in the first 3 weeks of the season could spell utter doom. They have to be careful not to get caught looking past this Ludlow team that, putting up 27 points last week, more than they scored all of last year, There is a little bit of explosiveness to their new offense.
Well, that's what I want to know what their attitude is this week. I want to know if they're willing to show up against Ludlow. This is a team that they, going on paper can beat. You're right, Frank. Top to bottom, this is a very talented Trumbull team. Forget about what happened last week against Greenwich. Put it behind you. Move on. It's a new week. It's a new team. You're going up against Ludlow at Fairfield Ludlow. Go on the road. Take care of business. Move on. Go, turn it to 1-1, then you move on to New Canaan. Don't even look ahead to New Canaan just yet. Focus on Ludlow. But my big thing is big loss like that, John. What's that attitude? I don't want to see guys hang their heads all week. No. I know it's a long week, but that's my biggest thing. What's their attitude going to be like?
Well, that's what you've got to see is they have to come back from that beatdown, which is what it was.
There's no other way to put it.
And they've got to come back and say, all right, it's a one-time thing. We are going to reestablish ourselves, and that's what they have the opportunity to do. It's taken forever, I'm sure, on that practice field to get to Friday.
They won 42-13 last year over Ludlow. I would put that as a 3-score game, realistically, that the Eagles should win. Those are the first 4 games on the calendar, games that include the names Darien, Ridgefield, New Canaan, Trumbull. 3 of those games are a matchup of teams that are 0-1 versus 0-1. We're going to step aside. When we get back, we've got the next 4 games, all featuring teams that sit at 1-0 in the conference. That's coming up next on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth-wheel lines from Surveyor, and a toy hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Baystar and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866.
At Portofino Restaurant and Wine Bar in Bethel, fresh and simple food is our concept. Owned and operated by brothers Rocco and Louie, Portofino has a distinct and diverse food and drink menu. Open Tuesday through Sunday. Come join us for live local music on Tuesdays and Sundays, Wednesday nights for mouthwatering prime rib, and every Thursday night is ladies' night. Planning a party? All our catering menus are personalized to suit your event and your budget. Join us at the Dolan Plaza, 213 Greenwood Ave, Bethel, and call us at 203-797-8131. Like us on Facebook. Dr. Stephen Molinaro and Peter Healy of Family Practice Dentistry and Laser Dental Care have served Ridgefield for over 22 years. Experienced staff offer gentle drillless techniques, preventative care, and cosmetic procedures in a relaxed environment. Grateful for the community's trust and support through the years, new patients and their families are welcome. Call today.
At Art Play in Ridgefield, we encourage students at a young age to unleash their creativity. Art Play is about hands-on exploration of mixed media, acrylic, and collage for ages 4 to 12. Older kids welcome. Classes meet weekly at Jesse Lee Church, Main Street, Ridgefield. Find us on Facebook at Art Play at Jesse Lee. Whether you're looking for a great test prep program, tutoring to boost your grades, or a blast-off tour with the college of your dreams, C2 Education is here to help. There is nothing one-size-fits-all about our programs. We offer customized tutoring and test prep for each student. Call us today at 203-423-3328.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports as we continue looking through this weekend's football schedule. We get in now to the matchup of undefeated teams. Let's start Staples traveling to Wilton. Staples, the big win, 52-0 over Central last week. No surprises there, but it's a statement win for that program, John. On the other side, a statement win for Wilton, getting past Brian McMahon, 42-21. They were up big in the first half as well. We've got some clips of some of the scoring plays from that Wilton game we're going to see here shortly. And Kevin, I'm going to start with you. Your boy Harvey Alexander making a big splash.
He's got to come up big this week. Obviously a huge week 1 for Harvey Alexander. He's got to come up big. You see him right here in front of your screen. I mean, this guy can get by you, and he can get by you not only with his size, but with his quickness. So he's going to be a big factor against, listen, a very talented Staples defense that I think a lot of people are surprised with this year.
These two teams met a little later in the season last year, as again, we're seeing Alexander on the loose here. I think it was week 4 when they played against each other. They were sitting at 3-0 each. Staples comes in and just ran it up on Wilton, 42-6. Get your coughs out. You're okay.
I'm good. Good now.
Do you think we see a similar result this year where Wilton shows good signs early on, but they're still just outmatched by a Staples team?
You know, Staples so impressed me up front when I saw them against Fairfield Prep in that game scrimmage that I think Wilton has an uphill battle. But boy, if these two teams can get together and kind of replicate what they did last week, this could be an old school smash mouth game that you guys who love 70s football, where it's 3 yards and a cloud of dust, could really enjoy it.
It's very interesting to me because you look at last season too and you think Staples just was not as good as they could have been or have been in years past. Wilton, I thought, exceeded expectations, yet they couldn't compete with Staples. So I'm stuck here wondering, is Wilton just taking advantage of the games they're supposed to win but not quite ready for the next level talent, or are the Wreckers just failing in games where they should be winning?
I think this is the game we find that out. You always reach that one game where you get over the top and either you take that next step or you don't. I think we find that out tomorrow night when these two teams face each other, because these are two teams that are just going to stand there and go blow for blow like an old school heavyweight fight.
We do want to thank J.B. Cousins of the Wilton Bulletin, sports editor there, part of the HN Network, for that video footage. Very good job there.
I dig the dark gray pants with the
love that. I'm glad you said that, man.
That's a great look.
I've been thinking about that all week. I was a huge, huge fan of that. Next game up, the Cinderella of Week 1, St. Joe's. They will play their first home game. A lot of polls have them ranked right around number 2, number 3 in the state now after knocking off the Rams. They get Fairfield Ward coming off their big comeback win. Listen, if David Summers has found a way to recover from last week's beating that he took against the New Canaan defense, I'm impressed with what Ward did. They're not ready to hang with the Cadets.
Not if Summers is fully recovered. And he took a beating. He earned that win against New Canaan. We saw him so many times slowly getting up, going off the field like something had been knocked askew in his skeleton. But he kept coming back and he kept making that offense work even when it looked like the tide had turned for New Canaan. I think he's going to be fine this week. It's certain, you know, St. Joe's isn't the Stamford team that Ward came back against. I think that defense might be tough to block. New Canaan had a hard time picking up the pressure, and that's one of your better offensive lines.
The defense, you're right, and it was just the way they got to the quarterback, because they're coming from the slot position at that cornerback spot. Their outside linebackers are blitzing from 5-6 yards off the line, and they're getting there quickly. They timed up cadence as well, but they were also just blitzing from position. I think Ward benefits that. They're not going to be in the gun. You're not going to see as much true drop back. What could cause some issues for St. Joe's, Kevin, might be the play-action game. If they're pounding it down your throat, 1st and 2nd down, 3rd and manageable, 3rd and short, even 2nd and manageable, and all of a sudden they hit you with a little play-action against the blitz, you can get your tight end, get your fullback out in the flats. It's an offense that you should probably see more in high school, but has almost become outdated with this movement to the spread.
Yeah, you're right. You don't see the play action as much in the high school game, and that's where I think St. Joe's really benefits from, because yes, they have Jared Malazzi, but they also have Phil Pesmig, who we saw make some really nice catches on Friday night, and he continues to have a great career with the Cadets as a tight end. He's a very talented tight end. He's got the size, got the physicality, and I think David Summers, he's going to come back big time because he's got a little chip on his shoulder, because this is a Fairfield Ward team that, you know, he was a member of this team. He comes back with a little vengeance, maybe a little more confidence, a little more, swag in his step, if you could say. But again,
that goes both ways, though, Kevin.
It does, because Ward's going to come out and want to get after him, and I agree with that. But I think you're going to see David Summers put on a show because, yes, he got lit up on Friday. New Canaan lit him up pretty good. And just being able to talk to him at the end of the game, the guy was gassed, and he couldn't put anything else in. Jared Malazzi had a great game. I think he'll be back to where he was like we saw Friday night. But, I mean, David Summers, I think he's going to have himself an afternoon on Saturday.
But I think he's got a target on him.
I definitely
when you
agree.
have that, and we saw it last year when we
agree.
did the Trinity at Greenwich game, Frank, where you had a quarterback who left, come back, and they will take any opportunity they can to remind him that, hey, you left me.
That is a big point. I almost overlooked the fact that it's Summers' return to Ward. I
did too.
I think you get a heavy dose of Sheridan on Saturday afternoon. I think they let him really take control of this game after sort of being neutralized against the Rams. I think he gets a lot of screen touches as well, try to tire that defense down. Joe's big, though, 2 or 3 scores in that one, in my opinion. Now we look at our games of the week. Let's start Friday night. We'll obviously have a lot more on this game on FCX Tailgate at 5 p.m. tomorrow from Norwalk High. But the Vikings of West Hill and the Norwalk Bears, the number 2 and 3 scoring teams in the conference last week. West Hill coming off a 50-27 win over Fairfield Ludlow. 68-57, the Bears took down the Hamden Green Dragons. We're going to spend more on this game tomorrow, John. So let's just quickly now, one key to success, one player to watch. What are you going with?
West Hill has to clean up the handling of the ball. They won that game 50-27. They turned it over 7 times. 6 in the first half. That game with Ludlow should have been over at intermission.
Kevin.
And it wasn't.
I agree with John. I think West Hill needs to take care of the ball because this is clearly a Norwalk team that likes to score, and they can score a lot. You look at Kyle Gordon, the sophomore quarterback, A.J. Hall, another big name that we're going to see throughout the FCX. A.J. Hall is a guy I think is going to be an X factor tomorrow night for the Norwalk Bears.
I like the A.J. Hall. I think West Hill, you're right, it's just the offense. Turnovers limit that. Kyle Phillips, and it's not the way he's throwing the football. Keep an eye on how they use the sophomore quarterback in the run game.
That I want to see, the X factor, until I see differently tomorrow night, the Norwalk defense. They gave up 57.
Yeah.
And it was 57 with half of it coming in the second half.
Yeah.
You had that game in the bag, so I agree. That's something that we'll definitely keep an eye on. Last game, Greenwich goes to Trinity Catholic. We mentioned some bad blood in this one last year. I don't know that it'll carry over to this one, but what does Trinity have to do to keep up? I don't even know if you say slow down, but keep up with this Greenwich offense coming off a 70-point performance.
I honestly don't know. Greenwich did so much, so well Saturday. I don't know how you stop them because when they attacked the flank and you went out there on the perimeter, they just ran it up the gut. When you tightened up and ran it up the gut, they got vertical on you. Whatever you do, they have a counter for it. They showed so many weapons and so much success at so many different things. I don't know what. I think you just have to hope they turn the ball over. That was the only weakness they showed.
Trinity is a cover 3 team defensively. They saw a lot of Greenwich screens when they watched film this past week. What I would be scared about is your cornerbacks playing that deep third, getting a little too anxious, a little too aggressive. Greenwich will set up the fake screen. We saw them run double pass. Play your assignment. You cannot get caught peeking in the backfield because guys will be running by you.
And Tyson Camazio, can he have another good outing like we saw last Saturday? Gavin Muir, I thought he just looked so comfortable in the pocket. I was so impressed, actually overly impressed. I wasn't sure what to expect from Gavin, and he just looked so comfortable in the pocket, John.
He looked fantastic in the pocket.
Confident.
What I loved about Gavin's performance is they got the ball, they drove. Gavin made a bad play that we see guys in the NFL made. He tried to make something out of nothing, and he forced a throw, and that interception led to Trumbull's first score and the early lead. And from that point on, and I don't know what John Marinelli said to him, from that point on, he was a new quarterback, and he went out, and he was smooth.
Oh, so smooth.
I was going to say to you, too, I would have loved to have known what Johnny said to Gavin after he came off the sidelines on that first one. That's going to do it for today's show. John, Kevin, and I will be back tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. Kate Chaplinsky will join us as well. We've got FCX Tailgate live from Testa Field at Norwalk High School, getting you ready for West Hill and Norwalk, which will be live right here on the AJ Network at 7 o'clock. We're back Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock pregame show, and then 1:30 kickoff between Greenwich and Trinity Catholic. I apologize, Kevin. You will not be with us this weekend. You will be missed, but
I'll be catching some football just at the next level, that's all.
well, I don't know if it's that much better.
What about Notre Dame? Come on.
That's exactly who I meant. You'll get a kick at Zach Allen, former New Canaan Ram, though. He's a senior defensive end for the Boston College Eagles. High draft choice right now, potentially. A lot of teams keeping an eye on him. We'll also be joined by Trinity Catholic single-season rushing yards and rushing touchdown record holder Nick Cortez on our pregame show Saturday afternoon. He'll get us ready for everything. For John Kovacs, Kevin Coleman, I'm Frank Granito. To the Bing Bang Theory, make sure you set your lineups before tonight's Thursday game. See you tomorrow on the HAN Network.